we call on Dr. Ramadevi Papalu, who is a founder and director of the Ramas Institute for Fertility since 1991, and a gynecologist and an obstetrician with a special interest in fertility management. And we're going to have a talk on recombinant FSH hormone versus highly purified human menopausal gonadotropin for controlled ovarian hyperstimulation in GnRH agonist downregulated cycles.
Very good morning to all of you, Mr. Chairperson, friends and colleagues. Let me thank the organizers at first giving me this opportunity today to share my thoughts with all of you. Every day, every clinician will get the doubt what protocol we have to select, which medicine we have to give, how the patient will be benefited, and with the least complications and best results for both baby and mother. So here we are going to compare the study between highly purified menopausal gonadotropin versus recombinant FSH. Just to brief, human gonadotropins are produced in the pituitary with the gonadotrop cells controlled by hypothalamus, and we know there are two gonadotropins, LH and FSH. This is the hypothalamo-pituitary ovarian axis for the regular menses and as well as for the ovulation. Going to the history of development of gonadotropins, way back since 1910, Crowell, they studied removing the pituitary from the adult animals and found there is a atrophy of gonads. Dr. Smith, he tried injecting a pituitary extract into the immature rabbits and found there is a premature menarche. So with this, there is a proof that hypothalamo-pituitary ovarian axis works for the ovulation and the menstrual cycle. In 1929, Zondak discovered Prolan A. In the latter years, it has been named as FSH. Prolan B, afterwards, it's named as progesterone. Menopausal women, presence of gonadotropin in menopausal women is also invented by Zondak in 1930. Since then, various generations of gonadotropins have come into the market. Coming to the recombinant FSH, briefly, follicle stimulating hormone, various types of FSH exist according to their sialic acid content, that is the carbohydrate moiety. Half-life of FSH is 3 to 4 hours. It is a glycoprotein. It has got alpha and beta subunits. Alpha has got 92 amino acids and 2 carbohydrate moieties. Beta has got 111 amino acids and 2 carbohydrate moieties. FSH exists in many different forms, and the half-life depends upon the sialic acid content. The more acidic, the more long life. The more alkaline, the less half-life. Coming to the LH, the half-life is 38 to 60 minutes, induces follicle maturation and the sequence of events leading to ovulation. Responsible for steroid production by theca cells, rise in estrogen sensitizes the LH receptors in the maturing follicle, and positive feedback mechanism acts on the pituitary, and pituitary releases LH. The average surge is between 12 to 48 hours, but the peak is at 36 hours. It triggers the ovulation necessary to maintain luteal function in the latter half of the menstrual cycle. It supports the theca cells, androgens converted into estradiol. In case of pregnancy, chorion villi take the role. Where do we use exogenous gonadotropin therapy? Not only in IVF, various other conditions like hypogonadal hypogonadism. Here, hormones are less, so it is a substitution therapy. And in women with hypothalamic dysfunction, we stimulate. In oligoanovulatory women, it is a regulation. When coming to the ART, it is controlled ovarian hyperstimulation. This is the history right from 1930. Various generations of gonadotropins have been produced. The last one is recombinant FSH, that is in 1995. So coming to the steps of production of highly purified HMG, menopausal urine is added with the activated caveolin, shaken well and kept in the room temperature. Then it is centrifuged, supernatant is discarded, caveolin cake is eluted with 1 molecule of 1 molar ammonia, elute with gonadotropins and urinary proteins, washed with acetone at pH 5.5. Then it gets precipitation of urinary proteins. Urinary proteins are washed out with the acetone, ethanol and ether. Then again it is treated with diethyl aminoethyl cellulose. Then it is subjected to chromatography. The ultimate gonadotrophin has been produced way back in 1950. The credit goes to Serino. Urinary gonadotrophins, the purification, when first generation has come, then the pharmaceutical companies concentrated on the purification. So in the purification, FSH has got, in this FSH is 75 units and LH is only 1 unit. But with the polyclonal antibody technique, they tried to remove the LH, that is successful, but proteins remained. The proteins were 95% in this generation. But next, again they have tried with the monoclonal antibody technique specific to FSH. Because of this, we have got highly purified FSH. This is called urofolitropin. Here the protein content is less than 5%. Because of the specificity and less protein contamination, this particular molecule we are able to give subcutaneously. What are the disadvantages with the urinary gonadotrophins? There are few disadvantages like contamination with the virus possibility and possible immunogenicity. Also, oocyte cytoplasmic maturity may be affected because of the various other urinary proteins like cytokines, growth factors and transferrin. Sometimes there is uneven biological potency, and the much more difficult thing is collecting menopausal urine in large quantities. And also there is some difference, there may be the gonadotrophins produced in the menopausal women urine and reproductive age, maybe there is some quality difference. In spite of all these differences, even today, we support HMG because of the presence of LH. Because in the natural menstrual cycle, nowhere LH is below 2 or below 1. So, when nature is supporting LH to certain extent, here because of the HMG has got LH, we are getting better results. Anything, moderation. It should not be more, it should not be less. If it is less is also a problem, if it is more is also a problem. So, coming to the production of the recombinant FSH, I will brief few steps how this recombinant FSH is made. It is a gene encoding alpha and beta subunits of FSH molecule. It's cloned via plasmid. It is introduced into the host cell DNA. Expression of FSH gene in the recipient cells. It is used in Chinese hamster ovarian cells selected as recipient cells because they are very easily transfected with the foreign DNA, capable of synthesizing glycoproteins, can be grown in the cell in a large quantities. Final 5 chromatography steps is added with immunoaffinity step with specific to monoclonal antibody to FSH. So, final production of recombinant FSH comes. This is a schematic diagram producing the recombinant FSH. This is a cell producing protein. Messenger RNA converts into complementary DNA with the reverse transcriptase technology, and this is introduced into the vector. Then vector starts producing the protein which we have directed, which we have intended. With this technology, various proteins have been synthesized and it is very useful for the mankind. How this recombinant technology has become possible? There were 4 discoveries, breakthrough discoveries. Because of that, this recombinant proteins, rather recombinant FSH, various proteins have been produced. First, in our speciality, first FSH has come, next even LH has come. So, the discovery and application of specific restriction endonucleases, discovery of reverse transcriptase, development of cloning technique, the ability to rapidly sequence nucleic acids. These are the 4 breakthrough inventions which made this possible. The tools used here are restricted enzymes. They are used as scissors to cut the DNA wherever we want, and reverse transcriptase. This is possible synthesis of DNA directly from mRNA, and complementary DNA is the result. What are the advantages with the recombinant FSH? Various advantages are there except presence of LH. That is the only drawback with the recombinant FSH. Here, no cumbersome collection of urine, no contamination of either proteins or microbes, no batch to batch variation, low immunogenicity, subcutaneous administration is possible and patient can inject on herself, and possible mass production. Coming to the LH component, because we are if we review again what are the exact role of LH, then we realize sometimes in some patients along with the recombinant FSH, adding LH will be beneficial. Especially, what is the importance of LH as a follicular regulator? It maintains normal follicular estradiol biosynthesis, tonic stimulation of thecal androgen production, luteinization of thecal and granulosa cells, and maintains the corpus luteum in second half of the cycle. Another possible theory is LH reduces the number of small follicles. That's why in HMJ protocol we get less number of follicles, whereas in recombinant stimulation we get more number of follicles, but various M1, M2 and premature, and enhances the large follicular selection of the follicle. LH takes a role of LH. In women, especially with hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism, when LH is less than 0.5 IU per liter, if we use the recombinant FSH protocol, there are few disadvantages: inadequate circulating estradiol and poor fertilization rates of retrieved oocytes, low number of oocytes, reduced fertilization, and as well as embryo quality. So, in our hospital, we have studied and compared these two drugs. We have selected around 110 patients and randomly allocated both the drugs. The inclusion criteria: women aged between 18 to 37, women with good physical and mental health, regular menstrual cycle, BMI less than 30, normal baseline FSH less than 10, and estrogen level less than 75 picogram per ml, and all the pathology of reproductive system like fibroids, endometriosis, Mullerian malformations, endometrioma, PCOS, hydrosalpinx, all pathology has been excluded. And also other exclusion criteria: patients with recurrent pregnancy loss we have excluded, endocrine or metabolic disorders no, significant systemic disease excluded, and patients with any taking drugs for any other purpose are also excluded. So all of them are good responders to get the good stimulation and good pregnancy rate. The stimulation characters: we have started 300 units per day HMG, highly purified HMG, and 225 units recombinant FSH. All the cases are down regulated. We started the monitoring from day 6. E2, LH, progesterone and ultrasonography has been done. Progesterone is also very important because all the patients will be under tension. Because of the tension, adrenal gland is being stimulated and progesterone is being released in the early follicular phase. So if you don't monitor progesterone and transfer the embryo, we are bound to get the failure. If the progesterone is more than 1, then those cases less pregnancy rate we get. So HCG is given, all of you know, when follicle reaches around 17 to 18 millimeters, at least 2-3 follicles, and aspiration within 35 hours of HCG injection, and transfer is on day 3, and luteal support has been given with the micronizal progesterone. We consider pregnancy test is a positive when beta HCG is more than 100 units per ml on 13th day of embryo transfer, and ongoing pregnancy we consider more than 10 weeks pregnancy. So final results: number of days of stimulation, it is more in recombinant FSH. Number of oocytes also more in recombinant FSH. Fertilization rate is also more in recombinant FSH. Cleavage rate is also more in recombinant FSH. But what we need ultimately is the pregnancy rate, that is more with a highly purified HMG. Pregnancy rate for embryo transfer 43.2% in highly purified HMG and 39.8% in recombinant. Ongoing pregnancy 41% in highly purified, and recombinant FSH is 35. Because of sometimes even the abortion rate is also more in recombinant FSH. Already the results I have told, and mild OHS is being reported with highly purified HMG. So there are various papers supporting this urinary highly purified HMG versus FSH. This paper also says there was an increase in clinical pregnancy rates with HMG when compared with recombinant FSH. Here, supplement of LH, this paper supports whenever you give recombinant FSH, if the estrogen level doesn't rise and follicular size doesn't increase fast, then we have to add LH and get the good result. So finally, it is not only the stimulation protocol or the drug that gives the pregnancy rate. We have to idealize both male and female factors to get the better pregnancy. All of us are waiting the day when we can produce a pregnancy with one single stimulation. That will be the happiest day for all of us. Thank you for patient hearing. Let me thank the organizers once again.